It's my privilege to talk with Bill Conley out of Columbus, Ohio. Bill Conley and I have been friends for a long, long time, and I want to talk about him. I'd rather talk about him than let him talk about it himself. Met him back in Middletown years ago. He doesn't remember that. He was running a college camp that eventually they wouldn't let him do it anymore. Bill played at Ohio State, coached at Middletown. I think there's someplace in between there. Then I met him again at Ohio State. He worked as a GA, and then he's on the staff. And then I think his strength was football recruiting. I know he's a good coach, and the biggest thing he did back in those days was sell Ohio State. Then he got out for a little bit, he was one of the pioneers of strength training and speed training way back when. And then he was the head football coach at Ohio Dominican, and very successful, by the way. And then he's even authored a book, and I forget the name of it. I should have looked it up. I'm sorry, but that's not important. Today, with all those accolades, now he works with local TV and radio stations in Columbus with the Ohio State Buckeyes and provides insight. And the funny thing is, you add up all those years, and Bill has always been around the kids center. Now, kids to me are college kids and high school kids. Bill has always been in touch with those guys. He's always been around those guys. Tell me, Bill, what do you look for in college prospects?
Well, first of all, John, let me say this. It's a pleasure being on your show. And you're right. We've been friends for too many years, and we'd all like to, we both would like to remember, but, you're one of the best at recruiting. You always have been, always will be. And it's a pleasure being on your show. But, for a college, I think it's specifically, you are looking for certain specific things in different positions. For example, look for the physical traits. In other words, does that young man meet the physical requirements? You might have some good quarterbacks, but they're 5'10", 5'9". They're not going to get a Division I scholarship unless they're extraordinary. Same with linemen. If you're a 5'10", 250-pound offensive lineman, you're not going to get a Division I scholarship unless you're really special in some way. So you look for physical traits. Then the second, the skills. So they have the skills. Does a lineman have enough flexibility in his knees and his ankles and flexion and things like that? So you look for the actual physical traits. What kind of wingspan does the person have? And the last one you look for is the intangibles. And I think that's really important for certain positions, John. For example, if you're a quarterback, a lot of people can throw the football. A lot of quarterbacks look good and things like that. But how do they respond in heated battles? So the main thing I always look for in a quarterback was decision making. They didn't have to throw the best football in the world, but if he released it at the right time, understood from pre-snap to coverage, and knew when to release the football, the timing aspect. So decision making on the field was so important for me. So I really divided it into the physical traits, the fundamentals of the game, and the intangibles.
Okay. Now, with that being said, and you've dealt with this, what's the difference between a Power 5 school like Ohio State, Alabama, and those schools, as opposed to a mid-major schools like a Bowling Green, Miami of Ohio? What's the fine line, Bill, there between those schools?
I think usually it works around I think the quickness aspect and maybe some cases speed. For example, if you're a Division I running back, for example, you better run a 4.4 or less 40 for a running back spot. You get to, if a guy runs a 4.5, 4.6, they're probably a lower level Division I or even FCS type of athlete or Division II. So it might be speed, might be quickness, could be a size factor. Say he's a really good offensive lineman, but he's only 6'1". I know he can maybe play a center at some major colleges, but probably not. So it really gets to be those physical things that young man can do.
Okay. Now, something that you should know as well, what separates the Division II football player from a Division I player? Now, I'm prejudiced because I love Division II football, but you having been in both and successful in both, what's the difference there? What's the fine line, Bill, there?
Yeah, I'll tell you one of the main ones, John, is Division I programs, big Division I programs. They want to recruit a kid that can play really early, maybe their freshman year even, because they're going to lose a lot of their better players to the NFL, no graduate and things like that. So you look for a guy that can be an instant impact player, Division I level. Division II, sometimes you recruit a little bit on potential. For example, you might find an athlete that's really good at the skills and things, but he's undersized. Well, you know, if you get that guy for a year in your strength and conditioning program, that he's going to get bigger than he was when he came out of high school. A second thing you look for in Division II is a guy maybe one of those hidden gems. What I mean by that, he comes from a program that has not had a tremendous amount of success, so therefore you don't get a lot of Division I traffic through that school. And we picked up a lot of goods. I know we had a season at ODU. We went undefeated, and there was 70% of those players had never played on an undefeated team on our program. So it was the first for them, but they were, you know, good kids and developed and things like that. So, and then again, the pure size, we can take at 6'2" offensive lineman, and with skill level and skill training, we can make him a pretty good football player. So it's our job as coaches to do that. We want that young man when he graduates to be the best player he can be the best student athlete he could be, and to be a great leader in this community when he gets finished. So I think the one thing it's like Division II, the pleasure for a coach is you have really more to do with the complete development of the athlete by the time he graduates, and really at the D1 level.
Yeah, I'm quick to think of that. I can't remember his name right now, and I should. Went to Ashland as a tight end or something, and now he's playing for the Miami Dolphins. I mean, he's making a little bit more money than I am. And then some of those guys, you know, the guy played at Buffalo. I didn't do my homework, but those guys are making more money than I am. They were playing at Division II schools. And,
exactly right. And so let's face it, some kids physically mature a year later.
Right.
You know, I know when I graduated from high school, I was only 17 years old. I really was young for my class. And, you know, you get those guys, all of a sudden they get that second growth spurt and they mature. And it just happens a little bit later. And they can be really excellent football players.
That's true. What about how should they start, Bill? What's the first thing? Now, recruiting's changed so much since you and I have known each other. But how should they start the process? Somebody turns this on today or tomorrow, and he sees that, and he says, well, I'm interested. Where do I, just give me a couple ways to start.
Well,
not necessarily Ohio State.
First of all, I always tell young athletes and their parents this: you can never do too much, only too little. So the first thing I would do, say a kid's a freshman or even a sophomore in their high school, and you have the aspiration of going on to college and playing. First of all, understand there's going to be a lot of schools that play for college football, and there's all kinds of levels. You got your Division I, Division I AA, the FCS. You got Division II, you got Division III, you got NAIA. You always have community schools, 2 community colleges, and even junior colleges to that extent. So prep schools. There's so many places to play. So, but the first thing I would do, the very first thing, is I would go to my high school coach, and I would say, I have a strong interest in going on to college and playing football, and ask him, what do I need to do? And can you help me? That's the start. That's the first thing. The second thing is obviously you have to get on the radar. It's number one thing, get on the radar of colleges. So immediately your first year playing in a high school football program, put your highlight films together. And that's one thing that I do in my extra service I do for kids too, is I advise them on how to do that. But get a highlight film put together and send it out to colleges. There's a little trick to who you send it to, but you send it out to colleges so you are on the radar. The other way of getting on the radar, of course, is go to football camps or combines. That way you're getting your name out there. So it's kind of a self-promotion thing, a lot of ways to begin with, John.
Okay, that's really good. Let's come back to, I'm not trying to cause any controversy because I ran camps and combines, and I had people in Ohio over in Northeast Ohio say it was wrong, went on Twitter and said it was a moneymaker and all that crap. And I was charging $40 for 4 hours, I think. It's a moneymaker. And, then some of these high school coaches come out and say, don't mess with any recruiting services. Well, Bill, as well as I do, there are always exceptions. There are always exceptions to, there are good ones and there are bad ones, of course. There are money makers and money grabbers, of course. But tell me just a little bit about the service that you do.
Well,
now,
the service I have is Coach Bill Conley Recruiting. What I do, first of all, I start with an evaluation of the young man. And those things we talked about in relation to physical traits and fundamentals and the intangibles. So I do a complete evaluation of the athlete. I tell them, these are your strengths, these are your weaknesses. And the second thing I do is I give them a game plan on how to maximize their physical talents. So it's a quarterback. And go through the things, say his release is 2 sidearms instead of over the top, and things like that, movement in the pocket. And so I talk about all the things they can do to maximize their talent level. And of course, if it's a young guy, it's a freshman, sophomore in high school, I'll do several of those evaluations before I graduate. And then I'm really an advisory component too. And what I mean by that is I will, a lot of parents and athletes don't even know how the college divisions differ in terms of academic requirements, in terms of finances. And there's a lot of ways to get money out there that aren't full scholarships that can help you, pay for at least part of the way to college. So that's one thing. Another thing is what things to look for in a college. Questions I would ask on an unofficial visit to a school. You can take as many unofficial visits as you want to. These are the questions I would ask. And the other thing, remember this, recruiting is a lot about establishing relationships. And so, for example, when I was at Ohio State, if I saw a kid came to my camp every year, and he was pretty good on film, and there's another guy that looks just as good on film, but I don't know that guy. And I have to choose between two. I'm going to choose a guy that I know more about. So it's establishing relationships. Anything you can do to help out. But I advise on that and everything. And again, on the highlight tape, here's what you want to do with the highlight tape and so forth. But it gives the athlete and parent a way of knowing what the young man has to do to maximize his talents, and also how to do some of the self-promotion we've talked about.
You just mentioned a couple words in there, and I think that makes a difference. You and I have talked about this over the years. You said advisory. You're more of an advisory person rather than promising these guys they'll get their name out. And I don't think you do that, get their name out to 1,000 colleges and all that kind of stuff, because I think it's really important. Of course, I'm prejudiced. We're friends. It's really important to be an advisory. And just because a lot of kids have no clue. And then even when to start as freshmen, they don't know what to do as freshmen. And you have to start that process now and the first thing you mentioned someplace in our show here, talk to your high school coach first.
Yeah.
Make sure he's aware of what's going on. I mean,
exactly.
I preach that to kids, and a lot of high school coaches don't even know when kids make visits or anything like that.
I know.
Okay, let's put some work. This show's going so fast. I bragged 15 minutes and we're getting close, but I wanted to touch a couple other things. Bill, what's your idea on camps? Private camps first. And not very, you don't have to beat them up, just your advice.
Yeah, I think, first of all, camps as part of getting noticed for the athlete. I think, first of all, college camps, you want to go to beyond private camps if you have a choice. You can only go to so many camps. And also remember this, in high school football, you're going to be spending a lot of your summer with your own kids, your own teammates, and your coaches don't want you gone all summer. So I think I've always told athletes, narrow it down to about 4 or 5 1 to 2 day camps to go to, and try to do ones that get you maximum exposure. For example, I think it's always good to go to a couple big camps because they hire a lot of other coaches from different programs, lower level programs and things. At Ohio State, we hire a lot of coaches who are Division III and Division II coaches, and you would get exposure from those guys. And then the other thing I would do, camps that have shown and programs that have shown you a lot of interest or in your early days of playing, I would see if they have a camp. I would definitely go to that camp. And then also, if one is really, camps are more mainly for evaluating for coaches, but the private camps sometimes can be good for certain skills. For example, Tim Williams, who's a great kicker for Ohio State, he's a great instructor of kicking. And me and him have been on several camps in the past, and where a kid still needs to learn the exact techniques and fundamentals of punting and kicking. Quarterback, same thing. You can go to private quarterback camps. They're really good at instruction of the fundamentals and techniques. But again, there's only so many you can do. First, go to your high school coach and ask him, what camps should I go to, or do you suggest any? And he can help you that way too.
Okay, we're going to finish up here in a minute. This is great job. Of course, I knew you would do that. I don't know how much this is going to cost me, but yeah. Bill, tell us what you know about right now. What's going on? And I here's the scuttlebutt I hear. Football camps, there will be in this June. They're going to be limited to the number of participants you can have. One day, no more overnight camps. And I think that's a thing of the past anyway, but those are what's out there. And we don't have time to talk about the pressure that this puts on the college football coach, because who comes to those camps? And then the other thing I would say is how many do you go to? And then I've also heard a rumor that come in September 1st, or the recruiting world in football is going to be changed drastically. The rules are going to be changed drastically. But let's just talk about the camps from what you've heard for the kids right now.
Yeah, I think basically the same thing you've heard. They're going to be limited in number. And also, it's going to be interesting to see what the NCAA says about that type of camp where you have limited numbers, because as you know as well as I do, the big schools, the Division I schools, they want the best players come to their camps, but you technically can't do that. You have to have open camps. So they've got to adjust the rules somehow. But again, the problem is the smaller schools, they haven't been able to get out on the road and recruit. If you're in Ohio State or Michigan or something like that, you're going to get some great players with them not even visiting your campus. But for the 90% of the other kids, it's been a real strain on those programs and aren't Division I programs. So I think it's really up in the air. That I would, as an athlete, what I would do is see if there are certain colleges you're very interested in, they're going to have some type of a combine for camp at certain dates. Because I know, for example, University of Cincinnati did that last year, and they had several times you could go to their campus and do some things. Division II, you're allowed to go to the school and actually do drills and things
right.
like that. Different than Division I. So I think a lot up in the air. The bottom line is this: it's going to be really an advantage for Division I's, but not an advantage for the smaller schools.
Bill Conley, thank you very much. We've been talking about doing something like this for a long time.
Let's do it again.
Get together again, run camps or something like that. But
absolutely.
It's always fun. And tremendous respect. There are very few. I'll be an attitude here. Very few college coaches are great evaluators. Some are, but a lot of them aren't. They don't take the time. And I think the other thing that you've done, I've watched, is, even a blind squirrel can see somebody run and everything. But you got to look deeper in the guy, in the prospect, and see what makes him tick. You've got to see, boy, if the going gets tough, is this kid going to buckle, transfer portal. And I think that's one thing that you do, and I like to think I do. Bill
And
Conley,
you're right.
thank you very, very much for being on my show.
Thank you, John. And let's keep doing this thing.